This Reddit article was written 4 months ago. Am I the blank for backing out of co signing my 27-year-old girlfriend's student loan? This is the 29-year-old male writing. My girlfriend and I have been with each other around a year, but around 6 months into our relationship, she asked me if I could co sign on a $15,000 student loan so she could finish school. She doesn't have family support and she was getting denied by all the banks. She came to me and pleaded that I help her and swore up and down she would not default on her student loan. I thought about it for a while and said yes because I wanted to help her. Well, she ended up signing up for the course she was going to take, and she had already put down a few grand of her own money as a deposit. But over the course of a few weeks, I grew more and more hesitant of being tied to a loan for years to come. I ended up backing out of the loan, and I told her I would help put down 5,000 of my own money instead, but she would need to cover the rest. The course allowed monthly payments and required $5,000 each month for 3 months since it was a shortened course. I was buying a house at the time and she was renting on her own. So I offered her to come live with me for free in order to help her save money she'd be using towards rent so she could put it towards her school tuition. This turned out to be a terrible decision since now she is out of school and claims I financially broke her. When she is low on money, she tells me it is because I put her in this situation. She has other debts to try to pay off that she can't afford because she says I put her in a bad spot financially. I had good intentions on following through with co signing on a loan for her, but definitely ended up getting cold feet and felt in my gut I needed to back out. She says I should have never agreed in the first place. Was I wrong? All right, let me go up here to the top. Guys, on this channel, and probably on the Dave Ramsey show too, if you watch that, okay? I'm totally against people signing student loans for each other. The only co signing that should ever happen, in my opinion, is parent to child and under the conditions that the parent has the money immediately available in liquid stocks, bonds, CDs, whatever, that they could cash it out immediately and pay off the child's debt if the child defaulted. In this particular case, we can say a $15,000 student loan sounds small. Yes, it does. But what do we know happens not just with student loans, but also in relationships where boyfriend and girlfriend, okay, they're dating each other. The intention is perhaps they'll get married. Who knows? And one signs off on the debt for the other. And then before you know it, there's a Reddit article, there's a Ramsey article saying, I signed off on this student loan for my boyfriend, girlfriend at the time, who is now my ex. 10 years has passed, and the $15,000 loan is now 50,000 and they won't pay it. The only fault that I could give the Redder, the boyfriend who backed out, is that he did back out. He has to take responsibility for that, and he does. But to me, that was a backing out that was very wise. It was a very good decision. It's kind of like when you know somebody's just not the right person to marry. Yeah, the cards may have all been sent, the cake is made, the church invites have already been done. And you just go, this is not the right person for me to marry. You are better backing up and taking the hits, lumps, and bruises that come with it than getting yourself into any sort of legal commitment and then regretting it afterwards. Now then, so yeah, and he already did. He goes, yep, I'm the one who backed out. But what did he do? Did he just back out and dump her? No, he says, I'll give you $5,000 to help pay the tuition. Now, let's think about this here. He says here, she has no family support. She was getting denied by all the banks. Why do people choose to co-sign then? And you've heard me say it 100 times, guys. I really think co-signing is one of the easiest debts to avoid. Don't sign. In all my debt history, with all the problems and the bankruptcies and the auto repossessions, okay, I've never not paid rent or even come close to it, and I've never co-signed. Co-signing, probably the easiest debt to avoid, and that is the debt responsibility that belongs to someone else. She says here, he says she pleaded, swore up and down she wouldn't default on her loan. Well, if the banks didn't believe her and her family doesn't feel entrusted to help her, why should the boyfriend? Why should you? Right? Let's see. Thought about it. He wanted to say yes because he wants to help her. How many people co-sign simply because they want to be a good parent? Yeah, parents too. Okay, and then the kid defaults, or worse yet, the kid defaults and doesn't even go into the degree that they, that maybe you put up money for, like a cool 7,500 grand, and then they become a stay-at-home parent and all of that. Oh, by the way, there will be TikToks coming up on the risks of being a stay-at-home parent. That is coming up right smack after Christmas. All right. So be looking out for that, because it's a topic that I'm very interested in, even though I'm not a stay-at-home mom myself, because I'm not a parent. I do have thoughts on it. All right. So, and we'll be discussing a video that went viral and all that. So that is coming up possibly even tonight. We'll see. Okay. It's Christmas Eve, so I'm not sure. But if the bank won't lend her 5,000, excuse me, the what is it, $15,000, the parents want nothing to do with it. Always remember, by the time they come to you, most of the time, by the time they come to the private party, boyfriend, girlfriend, best friend, okay, playing house, couple, whatever, because nobody else will give them any money. And if no one else was going to give them money, why should it be coming out of your pocket? She blames him. And she says, the girlfriend says, well, basically, you're the one responsible for my debt. You're the one responsible for my having to drop out of school. She's now out of school and claims he financially broke her. I'm going to give a big hunch. She would have dropped out of school anyways. Yeah, she would have done it anyways. Because you see, someone who is absolutely determined to get through school, they're going to find a way. It may be they have to stop school for a while, go to work for a while, come back to school. But if you are absolutely determined, you're not dropping. So she says that the boyfriend broke her financially. Now, do you see why the banks wouldn't lend to her? Now, do you see why her parents or her family wouldn't lend to her? They already know the games. Don't be the sucker. If I can send you guys off into 2026 with a piece of advice, do not ever co-sign. Don't do it. Says when she's low on money, she tells me it's because I put her in this situation. So you see, he would have co-signed for someone who would not take responsibility for her own debt. He could have paid the bill or co-signed for her. The relationship breaks up. And then she blames him for the breakup of the relationship, says, well, you're the one who's at fault for the breakup of the relationship. So I'm not paying a dime. You co-signed. See how this works? Gets really nasty. Everyone's your friend when they want you to give them money. And then when it comes to paying the money back, all of a sudden you become the enemy. This is also, in my opinion, this is his big sign to see that she is not ready to be wife material. If he was thinking that this is, oh, and remember, he says to her, come live with me even. I will give you all sorts of ways to help you pay that bill because I feel kind of bad that, I backed out of co-signing. In all honesty, I wouldn't have even said come live with me, because now she becomes a resident of the place. And if it doesn't work, in the house that he's bought, he's going to have to go through eviction proceedings. So in my opinion, you should not tell someone, hey, I feel bad of backing out of co-signing, so come live with me. But I understand why he did it. And it was still the better alternative, in my opinion, of co-signing. But as a general sense, I would not recommend to someone, do not tell someone, come live with me, just because you feel bad that you didn't commit to something financially that could put you in harm's way. The only person that I ever have lived with is someone I am seriously dating. If I'm not in a dating relationship with you, like one-on-one and all that, I don't live with anybody. It's either alone or it's with somebody that I love very much. That's it. Let's see here. So she blames him, says that he should have never agreed to pay her to co-sign in the first place. I agree with that. He should not have agreed to it. But I think he was very generous in the offering package. Matter of fact, like I said, I think he was overly generous, saying, come live with me, help pay your bills. She was looking for a sucker, and he would have been the fall guy, 100% guaranteed. And really, to me, this relationship is over. And that was only 4 months ago. All right. I'm going to the gym after this. We're going to look at 3 stories. Hold on here just a second. Which one is this? Hold on. I'm trying to figure out where the title is. Everybody just give me a second while I look for my second story that I just had here, and then I just lost it. Hold on just a second. Saved. All right. The next one we're going to look at, this one, I'll try not to prattle on too much. Is it well, yeah, you know how that works on this channel. Oh, and thanks, by the way, for joining me on this Wednesday, Christmas Eve day. Is it possible for student loans to entirely cover my entire 4 years of school, tuition, dorms, food, etc., with no upfront credit or cosigner requirements? Now then, this ran 5 months ago. As you know, I skimmed this with you, but this really caught my attention that I think is worth of sharing, okay? So we have a person here who wants to know if their 4 years of student loan can be completely covered by student loan debt with no credit card or cosigner requirements. And of course, we all know the answer is no, but you're going to find out in a minute what it is that I wish to talk about. Here we go. And this is really short. I just want to leave my home and get my degree. My living environment here is extremely bad. Is it possible for student loans to get me out of here while I go to college? I really can't do the community college then transfer thing. I don't think I'll make it through college while living here. It is too stressful and a never ending battle. My parents won't help with schooling, but they make a decent amount, so I'm kind of messed with aid. I don't care if I have huge amounts of debt. I'm just wondering, is it possible? Ah, yes. If you have followed this channel, you already know the problems and you probably already know even what I'm going to say. I have talked about this before in a video that I did a few years back. Yeah, one of the older ones when I wasn't even consumer debt chit chat. And I talked about one of the things that is a almost a surefire guarantee as to why you should not go to college. Okay, and I think that was kind of top of the video, reasons not to go to college. And one of the things I said was, do not go to college strictly because you are trying to get out of your parents' house. And why did I say that? Because typically people in that situation are going to run up tens of thousands of dollars in debt to try to do what? Escape where you're living. There are way less expensive ways to escape where you're living. Let's dissect this a little bit here, okay? Leave home and get the degree. My living environment here is extremely bad. Is it possible to get student loans? Sure. And the government will be happy to give it to you. Sally Mae will be happy to give it to you. And before this Redditor does this was just 5 months ago. I would encourage Redditor, watch this channel, watch channels that deal with students crying about their student loan debt, how they're six figures in debt. They can't get out of it. They get a job. The job only pays, 50,000 a year, but they're 100 a quarter, 150,000 in debt. And see if that's what you still want to do, because it's easy to sit and go, the student loan is my way out. College, borrowing every penny, room, board, housing, transportation, school, books, toiletries, everything's going to be borrowed for the next 4 years. And then you get out and you go, oh my Jesus, I didn't realize I was borrowing that much. And this doesn't matter if it's state school or private school. Don't think that just because it's in state versus a private, it's going to save you any. And to my point, there's almost a breaking point with student loans where, you've heard me say, can you get yourself so far into debt that you cannot get out of it? Yes, I believe you absolutely can. Can you get yourself so far into debt that no one wants to date you for long-term marriage material? Absolutely, you can get yourself that far into debt. Can you get yourself so far into debt that you regret every financial decision you made going to that school at that time on those, what is it? A student loan accounts? Absolutely, you can. So this is the interesting part here. I really can't do the community college thing. I don't think I'll make it through college while living here. That is music to the student loan borrowers' ears. That is what Sally Mae likes to hear. Yes, we want more people who claim they cannot live at home and go to community college for 24 months because home is so bad. So Sally Mae is right there to give you that student loan borrowing package that you're going to sign off on that you never understood, or you're going to claim you never understood. You didn't look at the interest rate and you just borrowed because after all, it was getting you out of your parents' house. But the problem that people forget is, yes, okay, get you out of your parents' house. You go to school for 4 years. And then what happens when you graduate from school? Oh my goodness, I didn't realize how much money, I took out. Now I got to go back home to that hellhole of a house that I left 4 years ago and thought I'd earned my way out. You see the problem? If you are in big enough student loan debt and you have parents that like you just enough to let you in, because I understand not all home situations are the same. So I'm intentionally using the word like. Okay. I get it. Fortunately, in my family, it's love. Okay. But, I understand that not every family is the same. Okay. But you're going to find that you're going to be right back in that hellhole that you supposedly took all that debt on to get out of. And then you get that first job and you realize this job doesn't pay enough. Oh yeah, and you're Grubhubbing and everything else. Making what see, here's the situation. Right now, this renter, from what I can understand, again, 5 months ago, does not have debt. And it looks like they're possibly getting ready to leave high school, I think. Okay. I'm just kind of estimating here. Or either high school or they're young. Okay. My living environment here is extremely bad. Get student loans, take me out of here. But what they don't understand is student loans is going to trap you. And if it doesn't trap you at your parents' house, it's going to trap you in a neighborhood, apartment, a lifestyle, a situation you don't want to live in because you got no other option. Renting a garage in some neighborhood, some little old lady who herself is paying off her student loans from the 1980s. You see? Sometimes we want out of a situation so bad, we're so desperate, we will take on that HELOC. We are so desperate, we will borrow from one credit card to try to pay off another card, and then we just go run up that first credit card again. In other words, this is the dance that we do when we don't have money, and we will succumb to anyone or anything that we believe will help get us out of our situation. People take on reverse mortgages because they ran out of money. Not all the time, but I'm going to assume most of the time. People take on home sharing equity loans. Why? Because their house is underwater, under foreclosure, under the threat of bankruptcy, and they'll take anything. Never, ever take anything financially. If you're making a financial decision because you're desperate to get out of the financial situation you're in, that's when you really need to stop, take a deep breath, and assess. Because this is where people get scammed. And people like to say Sally Mae is a scam. In all honesty, Sally Mae is not a scam. But the reason it feels like a scam is because we take it on under situations like this. We take on debt where we cannot pay it off. We do not think to do the math. You see any math here? Do you see anything in this writer's note that says, hey, I would like to go to school for 4 years. What is a reasonable interest rate on student loans? How much can I expect to pay off? No, we don't see that. All we see is this is a hellhole that I'm living in and I need to get out. And I think 4 years of student loans would give me a break. Yeah, that 4-year break that this writer is going to get is going to turn into a 50-year student loan borrowing situation. So we have to be really, really careful because, I read things like this and my heart kind of breaks because I'm like, oh my God, you want to get out? Good. I'll tell you what, you do 2 jobs working full time at some place, pick yourself up a roommate, live in somebody's garage, whatever. Okay. I did during college. It's $300 a month right near the University of Oregon campus. All right. Live in someone's garage. You see, it's easier to do that when you aren't carrying a bunch of student loan debt. You're probably still going to have to do the same work actions. The difference is, are you going to do it with Sally Mae on your ass, or are you going to do it debt free and actually able to save money? Never, ever, young people, take on student loan debt to get out of the house. I would rather see you say, you know what? This is my little hoopty. Pack up your crap, get into the car, and just start heading north or south or east or west or wherever it is you want to go. But debt free of student loans. Student loans will become that ball and chain. It was my ball and chain for 16 years, and I still couldn't pay the dang thing off. It took public service loan forgiveness to do it, for which I'm ever forever grateful to the taxpayers for paying it. And I have no guilt that the taxpayers paid it off. I do a job that probably 90% of the population doesn't want to do. Okay? 3rd generation teacher, love it. But never take on student loan debt or any sort of debt because you are in financial stress. Making a decision to take a HELOC because you've got a bunch of credit card debt, making a decision to take on a home equity sharing loan to try to save your house, to wake up one day to realize that 40% of the equity goes to the loan shark that you thought was going to save you, to realize that your student loan debt is the equivalent of your monthly rent and now you're forced to live at home. Don't do it, folks. Just please don't do it. I don't care if I have a huge amount of debt. Yeah, guys, this is what the student loan debt people want. They don't want you to care. This is why. Why do you think when you go to school, you never see the bill? You rarely see a bill. Oh, no problem. You just go ahead and go to school and Sally Mae or the federal government, whomever, okay, the private loan borrower, okay, we will just go ahead and pay the school directly. Your job is just to go to school. See? Don't think for a minute that any of the conveniences you get as a student is because it's really being convenient. It's profitable. It is profitable for you not to care. It is profitable to Sally Mae, to the federal government, to any other private student loan provider. It is profitable when you say you don't care. I don't care how much this private violin school is. I'm going. You see? That's what they want you to think. Let me quote, I don't care if I have huge amounts of debt. Of course you don't care because you don't hold the debt right now. That's why you don't care. But trust me, you're going to care. You're going to care when, say, you go to dinner with some guy, gal you really like, and they're like, so how much debt do you have? I'm sitting on $150,000 student loan debt. I live with my parents and I work 2 jobs, and one of them involves a vehicle picking people up. You see? This is where they get you. I don't care if I have huge amounts of debt. I'm wondering, is it possible? Sure, it's possible to shoot yourself in the foot accidentally too. I wouldn't recommend it. It's possible to ride your bicycle into a tree. I definitely don't recommend that either. And I don't recommend that you get yourself into crap loads of student loan debt just because you want to get out of the house. All right, we got time for one more. What time is it for gym time? It's 11:47 on Tuesday. We're going to do one more, okay? All right, here. It says, I lost 100K and need advice from 3 months ago. What do you expect when you're 24 years old, mentally ill, with addiction problems, and suddenly your dad passes away and leaves you a bunch of money? You're going to get even more depressed. You're going to spend that money as fast as you can. I spent over $100,000 on nice clothes, traveling, eating out, and gambling. Before all of this, I worked a regular job for years, making a little over minimum wage, and I still was able to treat myself nicely. I didn't have any overhead or any bills. I was living with my mom. My car was paid for. Everything was good. One thing about me is I always had this little gambling addiction. But back then, before I had this money, it was on a much smaller scale. I'd lose $100 a day, and that would be huge for me. Well, things changed drastically. Over the past 2 years, I've got four lump sums of money, over 100K total to be exact. My life changed immediately after depositing that first check. I quit my job. Why? Because I wanted to take my side hustle seriously, which is videography and video editing. So I bought all the newest camera gear, laptop, accessories, anything you can think of. I noticed I didn't like the amount of money I had just spent. I went onto a gambling website, which is I'm sorry, I went onto a gambling website and tried to make that money back. I deposited $500, 1,000, 2,000, and just ended up wasting double the money I had lost. This led me into such a dark, depressing past 2 years of my life where I was chasing the same cycle almost every single day. Some days I'd win 10,000, but I would immediately give it right back and more. I didn't care about my so-called career whatsoever or more. I just became the laziest, disgusting version of myself I had ever seen. I would sit at home spending thousands of dollars a day trying to fund my life that way. Now I'm writing this because I have hit rock bottom. I am down $40,000 gambling alone, and the other thousands of dollars I have nothing to show for besides a few nice outfits. I'm 26 years old now. I still have a very small portion of the money I was left, but I feel hopeless. I banned all my gambling accounts, but I'm really not sure what else to do from there. Okay. And again, this was just 3 months ago. When my parents passed away, my mom and my stepdad, and it's no secret on this channel, okay, they left me a tidy sum of money. They left for each child, okay, for each child to spend as they wished, and we were all very blessed to get it. Not enough for me to quit my teaching job, but definitely enough for me to get my little condo, and it literally financially changed my life, along with the student loan debt being forgiven, and those came within just a couple years apart from each other. I was so grateful that I was in my 50s when my inheritance came in, okay? I'll just say it was low six figures after taxes. I was so grateful because if I had gotten the money in my 20s, I guarantee it to you, I would have done what this Redditor did. Not in gambling, okay? And this is why I'm being kind of gentle about this. I'm not going shame, shame, because I'm looking at my past financial history and my shopping addiction. And I understand I bought myself a whole bunch of nice clothes and I don't own crap of it today. But I had a lot of nice clothes, more clothes than I can remember. I would have done the same thing. And this is why I think when people are left inheritances, I really strongly believe that if you are a parent and you are leaving a child an inheritance, you don't need to wait till they're 50, but I'm going to say minimum into their 30s. And here's why. Because and this is what my parents believed also. The 20s is a lot of motion, it has a lot of emotion, okay? Between college changes, your brain is still, finishing its what is it? Cortex development, like I'm a brain surgeon, okay? But they say the brain still keeps going till 25. There's a first time dating, first love life, first time getting your apartment. There are a lot of firsts that happen in your 20s. Emotionally, physically, just what you experience in life. The first time I got to get an ice cream cone anytime I wanted, I didn't have to ask mom and dad. The very first apartment, the very first car. My parents felt you really needed to go through these things and the failures of those first. I spent too much money on a car. I spent too much money on credit card debt. I dated the wrong person, you see? And they didn't want the inheritance money being spent on things that they know that most likely you would regret. This Redditor is only 26 years old now, but they got the money when they were 24. So they basically blown through $100,000. And what did they also do? They quit their job to do what? Video photography stuff. Everybody holds a camera now. Everybody holds a cell phone. You don't need to hire a professional photographer anymore. I mean, don't get me wrong. What you get in professional photos, for the most part, it's going to beat a cell phone any day. But for those on a budget, you don't need it anymore, right? And now you have Photoshop and CapCut and everything else to edit your stuff, so you can look like it was taken by a professional. But what did this young person do? Yes, they quit their job and said, basically, I'm sitting on 100 grand, whatever. I guess I can, you know, change my life, quit my job, all is good. But what were they doing before? They were doing exactly what my parents would have wanted from their kids. They were working. They were struggling a little bit, but this writer says, they had the money. They what was it? They said even though they gambled a little, which really is that's not good. That's a beginning sign of addiction. Not always, but it can be. But what were they doing? They made a little over minimum wage. They were still able to treat themselves. What would have happened if they had kept doing that because the money would not have been available until they were in their 30s? See? And this is the risk of when you give an inheritance, a significant amount of money to someone who's young. And if it's not earmarked for something like this, is earmarked for college only. It's written by the trustee to go to the school. Okay. It's not laid out like that. And it's just, hey, here you go. Mentally ill 24-year-old that thinks they're on top of the world and quits their job to do, basically a hobby, video photography work. This is what happens. Let's see here. And the mental illness, yes, as you know, I was very mentally ill in my 20s. Cannot discuss it. Not appropriate for the channel. Well, eventually it will be after I retire. Okay. I've had people tell me I should write a book on it. Maybe I will someday. I will need an editor. Let's see here. The past 2 years of their life, depressing. Some days you win 10K. Yeah, that typical gambling stuff. I don't want to get deep into the gambling, not on Christmas Eve day and before I go to work out at the gym. But the bottom line is this: giving a whole lot of money to a person in their 20s, and again, I say specifically in their 20s, can be a huge financial risk. And if I had been the person who was to leave the inheritance, I would have insisted either in the 20s, if it's written for school, housing, okay, housing because you're going to school, not just here's my apartment, live in it, housing because you're going to school during the time you're in school, or early to mid 30s, which is about the time people hopefully start to mature up a little bit. You get a little bit wiser. You've been through your 20s, the bumps and bruises and all of that.